You're listening to The Bold Blueprint with Claire Bartlett. This is the go-to podcast for business owners who are ready to be bold, step into your power and claim the success that you deserve. So whether you're an established business or just starting out, this podcast is your weekly dose of unapologetic inspiration, empowerment, and actionable advice to take your business to the next level. So whether it's the highs, the lows, or everything in between, I'm here to help you build a business that reflects who you truly are. It's time to break the mold and build a business that thrives on your terms. Today's episode is brought to you by Xero Accounting Software, a champion of small businesses and a proud sponsor of the Bold Blueprint podcast. Managing your business finances can feel overwhelming, but Xero simplifies it all and gives you the power to keep your books in order and your mind on growth. Xero have amazingly offered a 50% discount off your first 3 months with them. So if you'd like to take advantage of this amazing deal, just follow the link in the show notes. But for now, let's jump into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Bold Blueprint with Claire Bartlett, myself, and today I am super excited to invite the Queen Bee herself, Dani Wallace, to join us. She's an international speaker coach and the producer of the Big Festoon. Dani, I'm so glad to have you here with us this week. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
I'm thrilled, Claire, to be coming to have this conversation with you. We've been crossing paths for ages, so to finally pin each other down and sit to have a chat. I'm thrilled, so thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. I can't wait to share your journey with our listeners. So do you want to start by, now I know where you started, videos in the car, but can you share a little bit about where you were at that point and then how that's led to you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I originally started off as a performer. So I've been a performer for more than 25 years professionally, both as a singer and as a presenter and host. And I did that professionally for a while, but it was never kind of considered a proper job, so to speak. So I did this all over the world. I came back to the UK and got a proper job working in corporate and essentially swapped a stage for a stage. So I started to work in corporate within learning and development facilities within HR. So I got to work for some brilliant brands, Jaguar Land Rover, Carphone Warehouse, when Carphone Warehouse was on the up and up, Best Buy. And even though they were considered sort of successful jobs, I found it really difficult being employed for a number of reasons. One is, as I've later found out, that I'm neurodivergent, but also I'd experienced quite a lot of trauma in my growing up years. So clocking in and clocking out and having to report into somebody all the time really felt quite, for want of a better phrase, felt quite triggering. And so I wanted to work for myself. So I started to work for myself. But underneath all of this, my personal life wasn't in the best of places, and I'd experienced domestic abuse and homelessness. And I decided if ever I was going to survive that situation, I'd spend the rest of my life in service. So I came out of corporate, started working for myself, started to work full-time performing again, and started to get ready on camera, with my makeup. People watch people put makeup on, on live streaming. And I kind of saw that was happening and started to do it and started to sort of share with people what I was getting up to. So that sort of mixture of stage performance working experience and corporate working experience, and then the tenacity and resilience that I'd had to sort of garner in my personal life, kind of created this perfect storm eventually.
I don't think we can class you as the perfect storm. Perfect, definitely. And very, I just love the energy that you bring every time I see you. You just light up the room, which I think is amazing. But you have a certain level of confidence and ease on stage, don't you? And I think that's why you just have a way to support other people. Because public speaking, and I love that you have a saying that you say so much that the words that we use and our voice needs to be heard, and it's our best sort of marketing tool. And how do you support people with the confidence? Because it is the biggest fear, isn't it, for anybody, is public speaking. So how do you work with people to build that? Because did it always just come naturally to you?
Not particularly. what we need to understand, so glossophobia, the fear of public speaking, is the number one fear in the Western world. And I find that wild. Like,
Yeah.
so my ability to perform stemmed from the experiences I had when I was growing up. If I was singing or if I was being funny, nobody was fighting. So if I
Right.
could divert attention onto me, then yes, I was getting my needs of recognition and significance being met. But also, I knew that if people were following what I was doing and I was the centre of attention, they weren't fighting each other. People were in less danger when I was, when I was performing.
Right.
And I didn't realise that was something I did until much, much later on. I started to become a student of speaking and a real student of confidence. And that's the real thing. And people often mistake confidence for introversion or extroversion. They'll look at me and they will assume that I'm an extrovert. And actually it's not the case at all. I'm a huge introvert. And what we misunderstand about this is that introversion and extroversion, or if you're on the sliding scale, ambiversion, is just where you get your energy from. So people who are extroverts get their energy from being around people. They charge their battery up socially. People who are introverts charge their battery up, or their social battery, or their sort of energetic battery, in solitude or in very, very small groups of people. And ambiverts kind of move between the two. Just because somebody's an extrovert does not necessarily mean they're a show pony. And just because somebody's an introvert doesn't necessarily mean they're sort of outwardly shy and retiring. It really, when we start to understand a couple of things, what confidence actually is, and then what it isn't, and what our assumptions are about it, we can start to then build our muscles around our own confidence. So for me, understanding and accepting that I wasn't actually the extrovert that everybody was telling me that I was
Mm.
allowed me to start to own my process around performing. So I save my energy up prior to speaking or prior to training or prior to podcasts like this, which is much more intimate and actually more my thing.
Mm.
And then I'll get on stage and Hadouken people with the energy that I have. But with that Hadouken often leaves a depletion in energy where then I have to go and regroup and rest and not talk to anyone for a couple of days after a big event.
Yeah.
And conversely, if I look at my COO, who's incredible, Danielle, you would have her pinned as an introvert. You would have her pinned as someone relatively shy. And actually, she's not. She gets her energy from being around people and absorbing it. She's not necessarily loud with it and loud in that space, but she thrives more when she's around people. So I think understanding that was the first thing.
Mm.
And then the second thing is really getting to grips with the fact that confidence, however convoluted we look at it, is knowing. And it's real deep-seated knowing. So for example, tying your shoelace. So when I was 9 years old, I didn't know how to tie my shoelace, and I used to get really flustered, especially when I had to tie my bow on my summer dress. I had one of them gingham summer dresses, Claire. I don't know if
Yeah.
you did.
Oh, yeah.
But
Mine was pink.
yeah, so yeah, same. We had pink and then they changed to light blue, and it was like it messed everyone's mojo. But they had these little bows that you had to tie at the front, and I used to get really flustered because getting dressed after PE was
Mm.
it became like I got really nervous about it. I wasn't very coordinated. Anyway, my grandma taught me how to tie a bow. And the first time I did it, I thought it was a fluke. Second time I did it, I thought it was a fluke. And now, obviously, sort of 30 years later, if someone said to me, tie a bow in front of everybody, Dani, I'd find that very easy. I'd be confident doing it. And I think what people do is when it comes to speaking specifically, Claire, is that they don't put the work in prior to doing the thing. And so they're feeling not confident about lots of aspects of their delivery. So, I've come across a lot of people who kind of just get on stage and wing it, or they'll go into situations and wing it and not have done the preparation so that they just know in their guts, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to say. It
Yeah.
doesn't faze me, but that comes through repetition. So people will do something for the first time, just like I tied my bow for the first time, and they, it was a fluke and I was scared when I did it and I was still flustered and it took me for ages. But doing it a million times later, I could do it really quickly and don't think about it. So
Yeah.
that is the thing that I teach, is the recognition that we need to understand ourselves in order to become confident. some people are like, oh, you should love yourself and all of this sort of stuff. And sometimes there are days where you don't particularly, you can still be confident, go out and confidently deliver on stage, but you need to know what you're saying and why you're saying it and what's the message you're landing and trust your abilities. And you can only do that through repetition. That was a really long answer. I'm really sorry.
But I resonate with all of it. And especially, I love the fact that you said, about the introverts and extroverts, because I get this all of the time. So because I am, super confident now, I can speak on stage, I'm hosting this podcast, and, I can network a room like no one's business. But actually, I'm completely the same as you. Like, I need to hibernate after, especially big events, and I feel really drained after them.
Yeah.
And trying to explain that to people, like, I actually don't get energized by these big spaces. They drain me personally. To the point where some events I've been to, I've actually had to just disappear for a couple of hours, be like, it's too overwhelming for me. And actually, I'm just starting to feel a bit panicky, so I need to just go and step away for a bit.
Yeah. That's a real thing as well in events. Like, we have to provide on purpose, because sensory overload is an absolute thing. If you're taking in sights, sounds, smells, lots of new people, your brain's working at a million miles an hour, you're trying to learn what's going on stage. At our events, we've actually created breakout spaces for people to even go and snooze.
Yeah.
To go and take that time.
To go and have that quiet.
Yeah.
So it's a massive thing. And, and I sometimes don't think people understand that need, but also then with the public speaking. So I do prepare for speeches, but I don't practice them until I know them, perfect. I don't read a script because actually when I've tried to do that in the past, that gives me more anxiety.
It's too much pressure.
Than not. So I will practice it. I'll write, sort of cards. And for the first few times I went on stage, I had to have cue cards with me. And that gave me the confidence. Yep. I wouldn't miss anything that was, any of the topics. But God, I remember that very first time, it was like a physical reaction. I felt that fear in every pore of my body.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that big a speaking gig, but it was at an event with Sarah Davies and other massive names. So it felt like, and it was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. But I did it, and this is exactly what I teach, the same as what you say. You just have to break it down into small steps. That small stage, that first one, led me to the second stage. It was slightly bigger, but I had slightly more confidence because I'd survived that first time.
Yeah.
And it is about just gradually working your way through it, isn't it? But I don't think I could ever just walk on stage and be like, hi, I'm here, let's talk. Like, I'd need to have done that preparation before.
I think I could now, definitely now, because I have talks that are part of the fabric of my being, or, I know the way that my brain works is in kind of bite-sized chunks. So I know the structures from which to deviate, but it's taken 20 years of practice at that. And it's interesting that you say about the being put under pressure by writing out a script per se. And I'm absolutely with you. I work towards what we call structures from which to deviate. So, or monkey bars. So instead of thinking you've got to put one foot directly in front of the other and remember every single word, it's more like recalling what it is that you want to say. So the first time you ever hear Goldilocks and the Three Bears, for example, you'll hear it word for word because someone will tell you the story or you'll read the story. But actually you can boil it down to the fact that she walked through the forest one day, came across a house, sat in the chairs, ate some porridge, led in the beds, and the bears came home and scared her off. That's what happened. Now you can now we know those monkey bars, wax lyrical at each one of those steps. And it's knowing for a speaker, knowing what your monkey bars are, and then knowing how much time you've got to speak. And that's when the magic can start happening. That's when you can start releasing some of the pressure from yourself.
Yeah. And I suppose those cue cards I was holding so tightly in my hands were my monkey bars, basically. They were keeping me in track. And then it got to the point where actually the last couple of speaking gigs I'd done, I realised afterwards I hadn't even looked at them once. And actually they were just my comfort blanket. They were just making me feel like I could do it. So the next time I braved it. I didn't take them on stage.
I love that.
And it did, induce a bit of fear in the beginning. And I was like, but I don't know whether you do this, Dani, or whether you've ever tried it, but I do the power pose.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Love
Huge
a good power
fan.
pose.
Huge fan.
And always before I go on stage, I'll do it. And so in the beginning, I was running off to the toilet to do it. Now I just do it wherever, like, I don't
Stand
care.
backstage with
People
my
see it.
arms in the air, having a little
This is
dance or
me
jumping up and down. Yeah.
building up that battery of energy and confidence. And then I just went on and it was completely and utterly fine. But I don't think I would have been able to do it without them for that very first
You've got to
speech, you
create
know?
that muscle memory. You've
Yeah.
got to create that muscle memory. You know, comedians do it. They'll go and test out material at small, like, working men's clubs and comedy clubs. The night at the Apollo isn't the first time they've done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's maybe the 50th or 60th or 100th time they've done it. One of my friends got invited to a really small, like, a members only club to go and watch. I think it was like an audience of maybe 20 people. And she didn't know, like, who was going to be performing. It was a little comedy show. And it was Jerry Seinfeld. And Jerry Seinfeld, he was doing joke after joke after joke, and he was bombing. And then he'd go back to the stage and write stuff down. And then she realised actually what he was doing is testing out his material for the first time in this, like, little creative space in front of people that he trusted. And that's where he'll go and find where his jokes are landing. And, you know, even the best speakers, comedians, performers in the world have that bit at the beginning where they need to get the muscle memory around it.
Yeah.
And then so he probably didn't do half of that set in his eventual set, but he had to do that in order to get the night at the Apollo style material.
We had exactly the same thing above the pub in our little village. This is, I mean, years ago now. We went to this, I think it was like a £5 a ticket charity comedy night. And Alan Carr came on.
Perfect
And he
example.
absolutely bombed. We were all like, this guy is atrocious. The next year he was on telly and his career just took off. But and none of the content that he tried on us that just completely failed.
Yeah.
You know, he's just getting out the weeds, basically. They're testing.
Yep.
And I think that's what we kind of all need to do to an extent, isn't it?
It takes real stones. I mean, but especially when you're trying to be funny, like, that's another level of pressure where you've got to land jokes. It takes a serious amount of stones to be able to go out and try that stuff out and allow yourself to bomb.
Yeah.
But when you do, that's when the magic really happens. And I think, you know, one of the reasons why I do what I do and support people to speak is that they don't have to put themselves at that kind of risk. Because the reason why we get scared is because essentially what we're doing as speakers is we're challenging the alpha in the room. That's what we're doing as animals.
Yeah.
And so the potential outcomes could be that the pack will turn on you and kill you and not like the challenge to the alpha. That's what we feel so visceral about it. That's why we get, you know, we get thrown into stress response. And then when we provide safe environments for people to test stuff out like that, without those, you know, without the Seinfelds and the Alan Carrs and the Jason Manfords having to throw themselves to the lions for the craft, I think, you know, we can get more and more great speakers out into the world with the safe space.
I love that. But so one of the things that we've spoken a lot now about speaking on stage, but actually what people I don't think necessarily realise is that when we talk about public speaking, it's literally from the ground. Like if someone says, oh, hi, at a networking event, what do you do?
Yeah.
Your response is public speaking. It's all part of the same package, isn't it?
Yeah.
So although people say I could never do public speaking, when we use those two words, public speaking, everyone instantly just pictures a big stage and a massive audience staring at them.
Yeah.
But actually there's so many other elements to it. So do you work throughout that whole process with people?
Absolutely, yeah. Because the bedrock of any kind of speaking is to first know thyself. And confidence comes with being able to walk into any room and know what you're going to say before you get into it. So there's the way that I teach this is I talk about vocal business cards, and the analogy that I use is, whilst I'm teaching it, is I won't swear, but the Mexican wave of poo, right?
Yeah.
So you go into like one of these networking meetings and you know that you're going to have to stand up and do your elevator pitch. You've not really spent a huge amount of time on it, to be fair. And by the way, the way that you introduce yourself or your vocal business card is something you should be checking in with really regularly to make sure that it still fits with what it is that you're doing energetically. So when you go to these events, you'll kind of just be waiting for your turn to talk, stand up, vomit it out your mouth, sit down. You're not listening to anyone before or after.
You're not paying actually attention to the room, are you?
It's absolutely pointless exercise. But when you allow yourself the space and the time to really consider, how do I introduce myself? How do I want this room to see me? How do I share with the people that I want to help in this room that it's me that's going to help them? So we split it into 4. I don't know if this is helpful, Claire, but it's really simple. I am and your name, and I, and in as few words as possible, your job role. So for me, I am a public speaking coach and an event producer. That's, in a nutshell, that's what I do. I could wax lyrical about the fact that I'm a singer, I'm a performer, I'm an author, I'm all of these things. I'm a mom, I'm a partner, like I'm all these things. But the room needs to understand really quickly what I do to help identify themselves. Then who you help. So me, I particularly help people from marginalised genders and backgrounds take up space using their voice, particularly if they've got like a business message. And then the so that, and that's to create more impact, influence and income. And that's the bedrock on which I stand. And I can, again, like I say, wax lyrical on all of the things. But if I don't know that, then it's really hard for me to say to somebody what it is that I do and then get it. And then we can connect from there.
I love that. So it's I am.
Yep.
And I.
Yep. I help.
I help so that.
Yeah. So that I
Very
help
powerful.
instead of I'm looking for. I don't know if you've ever been to these meetings. They go, I'm looking for people who want to, I don't know, change their lives. We've got to really think like, what are the people that you want to work with or that you want to help? What problems are they Googling the solutions for? And speak to that. Instead of, I'm a manifestation maven and I help people manifest their dream life. That's great. But nobody's really Googling, how do I manifest my dream life? They're looking for, how do I make more money? They're looking for, how do I create more freedom? They're looking, get really specific with who you help and what the magic of working with you is. And as soon as you've got that nailed, walking into those rooms is so much easier. And then your messaging will extend from there.
I love that. I mean, I can't miss up this opportunity, Dani, for you to give us the perfect example. So go on, hit us with your vocal business card.
So my name is Dani Wallace and I am an international celebrity public speaking coach and the event producer of the fastest growing business and personal development event here in the UK, the Big Festoon. I help people, particularly business owners from marginalised genders and backgrounds, take up space with their superpower hidden in plain sight, their voice, so that they can create more impact, more influence and more income.
Boom, mic drop. I mean, I can clearly tell that this isn't your first rodeo and you've done that a few times now.
But and when you do, that's where the confidence comes
from. Exactly. That's the point, is that you can do that with your eyes closed in any situation and it will just flow naturally because you know what you need to say.
Yeah.
And I suppose when you're talking about the, what you do and who you help, you can tweak that to the audience that you're in, for that moment. So for instance, if you were in a room full of mums in business, for instance, you could tailor it to specifically target those people and make them really resonate with you. But you need to get, a basis, a ground foundation there before, and then you can start playing with it, can't you? And
structures
tweaking it
from which to deviate, right?
Yes, exactly.
So you've got that kind of foundation and then you can play, then you can get creative. I always think about it like a climbing frame in a playground. That you've got the climbing frame that provides you with the form and the thing that you can hang on to, but you can choose which way you climb up it. You can climb around it, you can weave in and out of the bars, you can go through the inside and then come back out through the outside, but you've got the frame doesn't really change. So
I feel like we're learning a lot about how you were on playgrounds when you were young. You didn't just get to the top and back down.
Absolutely not.
Love that. I love that analogy. And the monkey bars as well. There's a theme here, I think.
It's play, it's joy. Like one of our core business values is that we find the fun and bring the joy. That's what we're looking for all the time, because we learn best, just like children do, through either abject trauma or abject joy. And I would prefer to bring the latter.
Let's bring the joy. Let's focus on the joy for sure. I love that. So how do people work with you for the speaking opportunities? And is it, like we've said already, so it's not necessarily people that just want to get up on stage and do that level of speaking. There's different opportunities, isn't there?
Yeah.
And is there sort of a gradient that they can work through with you on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, say, for example, in March 2026, I will be holding the Big Festoon at the AO Arena in Manchester. Huge, huge venue. We are aiming for between 2,500 to 5,000 people at that event. For somebody who's first starting out, to jump straight in front of a crowd like that could be quite daunting. For somebody who maybe suffers glossophobia, that could be quite daunting. So that's for more like your established speakers that want to work on that 1%, like really, they want to go from, exceptional to world class. They're doing that kind of work. And then we've got our Be Amplified program, which is for people, whether they are, I call them dragon slayers. So people who are really facing that fear, but they're ready to grow their business, utilizing speaking as a marketing stream for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also really good for people who are a little bit younger in their business, who are trying to nail their message, who are trying to like kind of really land the plane of where it is that they want to take people, change makers, potential thought leaders, people that are really starting to understand the power that they have if they can get in front of people in real life. Then we've got that kind of mid-tier that looks after that. And then for people who are just starting out, who are just curious about speaking as a marketing stream, through our Be Heard program, which is just 13 modules where I teach the basics, but everything that you need to know about speaking, all the way from confidence to structures from which to deviate, TEDx, how to put events on, what assets do you need, what do pro speakers do that you might not necessarily think they do intentionally. So all the like insider tips and tricks, where to speak, all of that sort of stuff is covered within that sort of foundation program. So we've got something for everybody,
For
because
every stage.
yeah, because it would be remiss of me not to, given how varied my audience is.
Yeah. What you just mentioned there about like the little hidden tips and tricks, because again, I think we so often, people could look at you, for instance, Dani, you're so confident on stage, you're so bubbly and energetic, and other really successful speakers who we see at a lot of the shows and events, and they look at you and think, I could never.
I
It's
just woke
too
up and
big.
started doing that.
Yeah. From where I am today, that's just too big for me to even envision that could possibly be me. But this is what I talk about, the comfort zone actually is a really evil place. Like if you leave yourself in there, all it is doing is feeding the fear, and festering, and you'll never, ever make any progress in your business or in yourself. And I think by taking the tiny steps and breaking it down, maybe just starting on that vocal business card, just start there and then work your way up, I think is a really important thing for everybody. Don't focus on that really far end goal. Break it down. Where's like the first thing that you would like to achieve? Maybe it is just doing that 60-second pitch at a networking event, but doing it without the nerves, like just making sure that you know it inside and out and it's powerful and it starts bringing in new leads.
Yeah.
So it's just about breaking them down. This goes for everything in business. I think we so often look at people and think, God, they're really successful. Like they have done so well for themselves. I am nothing like that. You've been doing this for 20 years.
Yes.
And people.
And halfway through that, I was sleeping on a park bench.
Yeah.
This isn't certainly not an overnight success. And it's one of the reasons why I do what I do now is so that people can kind of get there quicker. For 5 years, I was building my audience and not doing anything with them. I was just talking. I was huffing and puffing and saying nothing on the internet. It was only like 5 years in that I realized, oh my goodness, this has legs. This has got, this could be an event. This could be a movement. We could change the world with this. And then I got delusions of grandeur.
Well, it's all happening. So I remember not so long ago being at Leicester Square at a certain premiere, which was amazing. And that, again, actually, that highlighted it because that showed warts and all, didn't it? The whole process of putting on a Big Festoon. And it shows that actually you're amazing on stage and full of that energy. But then in the background, you were, energies were low and
riddled with anxiety, riddled with, just this. I have, and I just want to deliver. Like it means so much that we land and that we the whole MO, my reason for being in business is to create safe spaces, to have conversations that matter and to create success for each other within that. We all do well when we all do well. And it's so important to me throughout the events, which are really high intensity, which are really energetic. There's a lot going on, is that people get it. They get what it is that I'm trying to do. Because I've been to so many events where, the people that are running the event, you can tell it's a money-making exercise. You can tell it's all part of the funnel. And don't get me wrong, there is business attached to my events. Of course, there would be. Like, these cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to put on. It's got to generate income. I've got to be able to feed my kids and pay my mortgage. But what's more important, I think the reason why it's done so well, Claire, is because it's centered in that service. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I want to create. And the anxiety comes from, what if I'm not doing it? Like, what if I've not done it right? What if I've done it and then I'm not generating the income on the other side, so I can't do it again and I'll have to give it all up. And there's this like constant fear, this knife's edge that we dance with as business owners all the time. And I'm no different.
Yeah. No, this is the point though, isn't it? That everybody looks at people who are further down the line and think you've got all of your ducks in a row. You smash it every
I've
time.
got squirrels at a rave.
We have no fear, in making decisions, but it's just as hard, and we have just the same struggles with decision making or confidence in whether we're on the right path and things. I don't think that the situations particularly change. It's just the bigger risks attached. But with your events, they're so heart led, and I think that's why it connects so much with
Yeah.
people. It's the content that you deliver is insane, but
Mm.
it's done in such a heart led way. Whereas so many others, they're very corporate or just business, like you say.
Yeah.
And you go and you don't feel particularly, you're just sort of a pawn in the bigger
Yeah.
thing. And
I want my community to do well. Like, Claire, I want you to do well. I want the people that come toward me. I know what it's like to be forgotten about. I know what it's like to be othered. I know what it's like to be beaten down, and
yeah,
and to be a bundle of potential. Like, I am really intelligent, and I was dismissed for so long because I didn't understand myself, or nobody like really saw me. And so I think what people can see when they come to the Big Festoon or when they come and get involved in my community is that I see them. Like, I see them,
yeah,
and they see me too, because I show them. I don't try and hide the fact that you've seen it, like that in the in-between moments, there is a lot of anxiety that goes on. There is a lot of, I'm getting this right. And even though my intuition and the whispers are, yes, you are, we're going in the right direction, keep going, there's still that little devil sitting on my shoulder going, want to fuck it all up.
yeah. Well, I think this is the thing, and I think people think that you can banish that forever and you'll never
No.
ever feel that again. And I don't think that ever really goes away. And I think the nerves for stepping up on stage never really go away, but they just feel differently. You can
Yeah.
turn those nerves into excitement. You can,
Very, very much fuel now for
you
me.
can use
Very
it as
much
fuel
fuel.
instead of like to hold yourself back. But I know that you've mentioned earlier that you didn't have the best childhood and you went through some trauma exactly the same as me, different situations, I'm sure. But how did you feel that fueled you to the success now?
The way that I see it is, I'm always, and this is just an honest share, I'm
Mm,
always running away from that. Like, I would
right.
never want to go back to that.
Yeah.
So people are like, will you rest? Will you rest? And sometimes I have that overwhelming feeling like, no, I can't rest, because if I stop now, that's where I'm going back to.
Mm,
And some of it is fear driven, and it's a really honest share. Like, for lots of us out there, a lot of our forward motion is fear driven. And you get your manifestation mavens out there going, oh, but you should just relax and let the universe let it happen for you. And you're like, well, actually no, because I'm the breadwinner for my household, I'm the breadwinner for my team, I'm the income generator for everyone. If I stop, it stops.
yeah.
And so there is a degree of fear around that. So what that propels me to do for the next stage for me is to create the right processes and surround myself with process-driven people so that the mechanics around the business are more safe and stable. So it isn't just me hustling anymore.
Yeah.
It's a business working appropriately like a business. And I think there's a real shift that happens for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people that have a business. That needs to happen. It needs to happen sooner rather than later. And because we get stuck in hustle, a lot of it's a survival mechanism, and it's dopamine seeking as well. So we will get addicted to struggle. We'll get addicted to it being difficult
To the hustle, yeah.
because the highs are so high that we're chasing the next one. And it's a very complex, I think it's a very complex thing. So for me, it's, I'm running, I want to create a life for myself and my children where we have legacy wealth, where we have, I have a legacy in terms of a movement. And those are things that if I didn't keep moving forward in this way, I could see myself very easily slipping back into apathy and boredom, and that's a really dangerous place for me and my little brain to reside.
Mm. I think that's very true, actually, that there's so often there's actually fear that from looking back that's what drives us. But it is really important to have that balance and to actually take care of ourselves. Because if you're constantly stuck in the hustle mode, then, that burnout is real. And there's
really
so many people have suffered. I have been there myself. And it's only when I've actually hit that sort of rock bottom and had to take my foot off the pedal for a bit that I've realised, okay, I need to get a bit of balance back. But for me, the driving factor from my past was actually sort of proving people wrong. That's what, for me, the success level comes from. And it's not that I will ever be in that situation again. My situation, like I said, is different to yours. So it's not that factor, but I was written off by literally every single person, especially the adults in my life when I was, in my early teens. I need to prove to them that I am, worthy and I'm successful.
You are as well. You're incredible.
Oh, thanks, love. But yeah, that's what's driven me through everything. And I don't know whether that will ever, it's one of those things that I don't know whether you can ever achieve that. And it's not, I don't know whether you will ever be able to achieve never having
There's
that
nothing
fear
at
again.
the top. And there's nothing at the top of the ladder as well. I think it's something I'll always dance with.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key phrase, that it's something that I've learned to not fight anymore. Because the more you struggle, the more it's like having your fingers stuck in one of them finger traps. The more that you struggle, the more difficult it is to kind of get out of them. And actually, when you just relax and slowly pull away, then it's easier to get out of. Learning at things like mental health, addiction, all of these sort of things, all of these things I've experienced, adversely, are things that I've learned to dance with over the course of time. And so you begin to then notice the ebb and the flow and the movement. And that helps me look after myself a little bit more, helps me lean on my team, helps me call in, the days when I can't. I just happen to have the days where I can, I really go. And the days where I can't, I have to forgive myself and give myself grace and compassion. And that's something that I never did, is learning how to dance with it all. Understanding that it's there and some of it isn't going to serve you anymore. So it's just that kind of acknowledgement. I see you kept me safe at that time, and now that isn't the case. Like, I don't need that anymore. I don't need that as a thing. And also, humans are awful to themselves. Really, they are. They are more likely to run away from pain than they are toward like pleasure.
Yeah.
Which is why things like, when you're growing, like gamification of goals and things like that are really helpful. But understanding that, and that's not because we're awful to ourselves. It's actually because we're designed to survive, and our social constructs have made us far too comfortable. So we've nothing to really push us away from anything. Like, we're meant to not survive, we're meant to thrive for sure. But we're not really surviving anything. So we find these things like finances to survive, and we find these things like, society and friendships to survive, and relationships to survive. And we look for our own sticks now. And it's learning that and understanding that. And as soon as you start to kind of see beyond the matrix of it, it becomes easier to move around and move with.
Yeah. I think one of my favourite sayings is you've got to start being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And if something is sort of niggling at you and it's feeling a bit, uncomfortable for you, don't run away from that.
That's a sign.
Investigate it. Yeah. Investigate it. Spend some time in that space. And it's exactly the same in business. If something is feeling really challenging for you, and is making you feel a bit out of your comfort zone and uncomfortable, run towards it, because that is what's going to take you to the next level in your business, for
Get
sure.
curious about it, joyful curiosity, like in any situation. And tell you what, if you're feeling something in your bones, like, that's literally your body telling you, we need to investigate this. Running away from it will just put it to one side. The thing's still going to be
It's still
there.
going to be there.
So by acknowledging that, yes, this feels dangerous, this feels unsafe for me, and then getting curious, okay, so in what way is it making me feel unsafe? And one of the other things that that really helped me, especially from an anxiety point of view, is, am I okay right now? in this moment, right now, I might be anxious about something that's happening in the future, but it's not happened yet. But right now, in this moment, breathe in, breathe out. Am I okay? Yes. Okay. Well, let's get curious then.
Love that. And really, this all goes right back to the beginning about starting to know yourself.
Yes.
And really understand what's going on in your mind and your body and all of those things. So you've been on this journey and you know yourself now. You've done the inner work. Are there sort of 3 things that you would suggest for people that could start that journey?
I think understanding what your personal self-sabotaging behaviors are will help you to get to dance with them, right? So I know that when there are things that I need to do, I'll procrastinate in some way, shape, or form. I'll fall into the stress response of freeze. Now, there's 4. There's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Now, fight, sometimes as a self-sabotaging response, I will throw myself into abject workaholism, burn myself out, because guess what? If I'm burnt out, I don't have to be successful.
Right.
It's really subconscious the way that we do things. So when I'm overworking, I actually need to call it and go, let's get curious. Why am I overworking at the moment? Do I need to overwork, or do I need to lean on my team who I have employed to help me with situations? Or am I working to try and hide from the fact that if I hit this next level, then I've hit this next level and it doesn't feel safe to me? So
Yeah.
that's how fight shows itself in me. Flight makes sense, running away from the thing. That's one way of getting in your way. Freeze, procrastinating, procrastinapping, procrastinetflixing, procrastidoom scrolling. I procrasticlean. When I come, like if my kids come home and they find me washing up, they'll ask me the question, Mum, are you okay? Is there something you need to be doing? The answer is always
Love that.
absolutely yes. I have a cleaner. There is no reason for me to be doing it. I got a cleaner because I'm rubbish at cleaning. I'm rubbish. You're like, Steve Jobs decided to wear the same thing every day to increase his bandwidth. I decided I wasn't ever going to clean again so that I could increase my bandwidth. So if I am cleaning, it means that I am trying to hide from something.
You're
So
avoiding something. I
another
love that.
really interesting one is fawn, where we say yes to everybody else but ourselves. And that means, well, I've said yes to everybody, I've helped everybody. And that doesn't mean that you are saying yes to you. And if I'd have known those behaviors in terms of knowing myself, I'd have been able to stop doing some of those things sooner and move quicker. Now I know, now it's easier.
Yeah.
I know that's not kind of 3 specific things, but when you understand that as a concept, then you can kind of check in and go, right,
Yeah.
what am I doing right now? And is it moving me toward the thing that I want to be doing? And if the answer is no, then you are in some sort of stress response. Okay, what feels stressful about this for me? What am I scared of? Am I scared of my own success? Because your body does not know. Like, I've never had £1 million in the bank just for me. And so my body, my brain, my sympathetic and parasympathetic system does not know that that is safe to have. All sorts of fears pop off for me. How much more tax will I have to pay? Inheritance tax. There's all sorts of weird stuff going on. The money that I've got now, I know what I'm doing with it. So am I going to run toward £1 million in the bank? No, because it feels petrifying. Do I want it? Yeah, why not? The thing that you want isn't always necessarily the thing that you actually want, right?
Yeah.
So knowing that is interesting.
I think that's really interesting, but it's about, there's those 4 elements that definitely we can all categorize ourselves into at some point. But it's having the awareness to realize in that moment,
Yes.
okay, actually, I'm overworking now. So let's ask myself those questions and let's, dig into it and be curious, like you say. So I think it's about just trying to switch on, isn't it, at the beginning, and just become aware of your actions so that you can then ask yourself the questions when you need to, realize that you're in one of these categories, and then ask the questions why you're there. But I absolutely love that you run to cleaning. If it's that's like the worst thing for you to be doing.
The worst thing for me to do.
So it
don't
means
wanna do
you
it.
really want to avoid whatever it is.
Really trying to avoid, like, the kids know. Like, Eli will come in, he'll go, Mum, what are you doing? Like, I'm hoovering. What you
I've just got this image of you with, your pink marigolds on and the feather duster.
aggressively. All of a sudden, I've turned into Martha Stewart.
Amazing. Oh, Dani, thank you so much for joining me today. Where can people find you? Where's the best places for them to come and look for you?
So the best places that you can find me is across the social media at the Queen Bee Dani. So I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. But at the Queen Bee Dani, and the event is the Big Festoon. But on the Queen Bee Dani page on Instagram, my profile on Instagram, you can get all of the details of everything that I do there.
Amazing. I'll put the links in the show notes for everybody. I will see you at the Big Festoon in March. Super looking forward to that. But just before we go, can we just explain, because I absolutely love this, where the bee element comes to in your branding? Because I just think this story is beautiful. So can you share that with everyone, please?
Oh, thank you. So, I mean, I love bees anyway.
Yeah.
And I love bees because there's lots of different things that bees do that really lend itself to how I feel about community. So everybody within the hive, every bee within the hive has a job, and every job is really important. There's not one job more important than the other. Everything is for the good of the hive, right? Which sounds a little bit like communism, but please don't I'm not getting into politics. It's a romantic idea. I like it. Also, when bees find patches of flowers, good patches of flowers, they will come back to the hive, and via the medium of dance, no less, Claire.
Amazing.
They will communicate with the other bees where the good flowers is. They don't overfarm either. They litmus test and they make sure that they don't overfarm a particular patch of flowers. They will let it replenish and go to a different one. So they do lots of really cool things. When they're building something new, they link arms and they festoon. That's where the Big Festoon comes from.
Yeah.
When I say I am the queen bee, it's actually nothing to do with me being the queen bee. It's me being audacious and hopefully encouraging and inviting other people to be audacious. But where it really comes from is when I was homeless, on the other side of being homeless, I was safe. I was watching the Bee movie with my kids. They were little at the time. And there's this phrase, this quote right at the beginning saying aerodynamically, bees shouldn't be able to fly. Their little wings shouldn't get their fat little bodies off the ground, and the bee doesn't care what humans think is impossible. The bee flies anyway. And that really is the heart of everything that I do, is that whatever it is that's happened, wherever it is that you've been, where you're going is your choice and your decision, and you get to fly anyway.
I just love it. Honestly, every time you share it, I just think it's the most beautiful story. Dani, thank you so much for joining us today, for being the queen bee and for doing everything that you are doing. It's an amazing, amazing journey that you are on.
Thank
and I'm
you
very privileged to be on it with you. So thank you to all our listeners for sticking with us this week, and I will speak to you all next time. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode, which was brought to you by Xero Accounting Software, a champion of small businesses and a proud sponsor of the Bold Blueprint podcast. If you're running a small business and you are dreaming big, then Xero is here to help make those dreams a reality. Xero is all about supporting entrepreneurs just like you, who are not just running businesses, but are also changing the game. So whether you're just starting out or you're scaling up, join a global community of small businesses who trust Xero to manage their finances efficiently.